everybody, it's Laura from McNeely Garden Studios, and I wanted to show you a really easy way to make a pretty impressive design for our patriotic season this summer. So I'm gonna go right to it and go right down to my table so you can see what is going on. So I've got some of it sort of in different stages here just so you can see, but I decided that I wanted to do an American flag in vintage colors, and I wanted to have flowers in it because you guys know that I love flowers. So I have this idea in my mind. And I thought, well, I don't want to use regular colors right out of the pots. This happens to be my Master's Touch collection. And if you can see, these colors are kind of bright. They're not muted. They're not vintage colors. So how in the world am I going to do that? And that is what I wanted to show you today. So I have the swatches that came with my watercolors. Each of these pots had these labels around it, and each one of them have the colors. So the names of the colors. So that tells me what the recipe was that they used to make this particular color, of what kind. So I didn't want to use all these bright colors, so what am I going to do? So I got out my color mixing guide, and I decided that obviously I want to use red, white, and blue, but really what I wanted to use was more like rust, beige, and a gray blue kind of color. So I had to figure out how to use these colors with this recipe to make the colors that I want to use. So I always keep my little edges, my little pieces of watercolor paper where I cut them off from making different things. I always keep the scraps because then you can swatch it out. Or sometimes I'll have a longer piece if it's something that is important that I keep up with the colors, if it's something I'm going to teach. But anyway, so I started with red, white, and blue, so we're going to go red, white, and blue. So this was the color that I decided that I wanted. It's sort of a rusty, like I said, antique, vintage type color. And I thought, well, how am I going to make that? And you notice it's kind of right in here. And so I made it, but I went ahead and wrote it on the back just to make it easy for you. And this is actually violet and crimson. So violet and crimson, and I ended up right here. So you choose this one, and you mix them together, and you do have to have some experience. You do have to practice a little bit, and then you get the right combination, so you get that color. And see, it's pretty close. And if you want to really blow your mind, this is what it looks like in the palette. It looks terrible, doesn't it? So, but remember, watercolor is really intense and it dries, it just diluted with the water and it dries very light color. So, so that was the red. Then the white, I wanted to use like a beige, like an antique white. And I thought, well, how in the world, where am I going to find that on here? I don't see a beige on there. But, so I wrote it down, cobalt blue and bright yellow, if you can even imagine. So cobalt blue is right here. Is that it? Yes. And the bright yellow. And so I ended up with this kind of beige right here. So that was that one. And you wouldn't think that blue and yellow, you think it would make a green, but it actually looks like this. Okay. And then the blue actually came directly out of my pot right here. You can see that I use that one a lot. And this one is blue, gray, and deep blue. So now the deep blue color, I know from experience that I like 3 layers. And with watercolor, that's a little hard. You just have to kind of, I started off with wet on wet, and then I put just a wash on. And then I went back and I used a figure 8 2 times. But I had to be very careful not to use an excess of water, because that's what I said. This particular paper, if you overwork it too much, this is a new brand that I'm not real wild about, but it will pill up a little bit. So I'm trying not to let that happen much. So, all right, so I showed you how to make those colors. We'll put that off to the side. And I'm going to show you how to do the background so that we can be letting that dry while we're talking about doing the other ones. So I've got the field of blue, right? And I'm going to use my really large round here because I want to make squiggly, like nothing about this is going to be geometrical or in perfect design. So I'm just going to kind of make a squiggly line here. Not real squiggly, but enough to where it looks like, you know, it wasn't done with a ruler. I think I'm gonna make that a little bit wider too. There we go. And sometimes when you want things to line up, it's better to start in the middle. I'm gonna kind of go from side to side here. But definitely better to start in the middle and work your way out so that you know that you're gonna have enough space. There we go. It's gonna work out nicely. You can always add a little bit, make it a little wider to make it all work out. There we go. So I'm gonna use this almost looks like crime scene color, and I'm just gonna kind of touch it to this water. Excuse me. And we're gonna let this, there we go. I'm gonna let it flow in the water. It's already looking kind of vintagey, isn't it? I hope that you have some Independence Day plans. I want you to stay safe. I'm gonna add some little extra squiggly lines here just to kind of make it, give it some depth. I don't know though, it's kind of making it look like bacon. My husband is a professional pyrotechnic, which is one of those people that set off the really big fireworks shows. And so he is always off somewhere on 4th of July and New Year's, and a lot on wedding season. So, okay. So I just kept adding it. I just wanted to look kind of variegated, I guess. There we go. Okay, so I'm gonna set that aside and let this dry again. And so what I decided is that I would have, since this is, I think I'm going to call it Star Spangled Zinnia. So I did some fussy cut zinnias, And I'm going to show you how to do one of these anyway. I'm going to get my brush really clean. And I'm going to dip right into this beige that we made. I don't want to have too much. And you see I've just kind of drawn it off on there. And you notice the center of flowers tend to be a little darker because they have more shadow from the petals. They have more depth. Now this has been sitting in my palette for a little bit, so it's a little bit drier, so it's going to be a little bit darker than those other ones. So once I get a little bit further out here, then I'm going to put the color more on the weighty side of the petal. When I say weighty, it's like if the light source is coming from here, then it's going to be more where the petals are overlapped or where there might be a shadow there. All right. And of course, it's very important to let this dry completely. You kind of almost have to speak watercolor, you know? You have to be able to think in watercolor. I'm just going to dip right into my well here, my Master's Touch well, and this is just olive. And I'm just going to give it a little color on the stem. And when that gets completely dry, then I'll take my scissors and make it what we call fussy cut. Now you notice how the paint, when I pick the brush up here on this side, the paint will pool. So I usually go back and either suck it up with the brush, because I don't want a big darker place there, or I'll just push it back to where it needs to be a little darker anyway, okay? I will probably come back and put another coat, another layer, just so we have a little bit more shading. But see the difference? This one is completely dry. This one is so much darker because it's not dry. But I will probably come back in here with some of these flowers and, you know, give them a little bit more oomph on the bottom of the leaves, maybe a little streak in the stems, or, you know, whatever. And I haven't decided on actually if I'm gonna use pen and ink on this. I probably will. I feel like I probably will, because it's so soft. I want you to be able to at least see it. And then the other thing that I made were wonky little stars. And I'm going to get my Micron pen, and I'm going to very carefully go right on the edge and give them a little definition. And my whole thought is, because I'm going to glue all this down, that I can put them just kind of wherever. So I'm going to do that with all of them and the flowers as well. When this dries, see how it's still puddled right here a little bit? I'm going to very carefully kind of suck up that a little bit. There we go. And then I'm going to put the vintage beige in here, and then I'm going to glue on my stars. Just kind of wherever. And then I'm going to do my zinnias. This is still wet, so I don't want to put that on there. But, so it's gonna have a look like that. And when I get done, I will certainly show you. I can make some notes for you so you can see the color mixes. So I'm going to bring you back up here. I hope that you have a very safe and fun holiday, and be grateful. We live in a wonderful country. I'll see you soon. I'm Laura from McNeely Garden Studios. Bye.